Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Marius van Wyk. I'm going to be your organizer and presenter this morning, it seems like. Sean Frey on the other side is battling with our ESCOM outages, but I'm quite sure you can all hear me. At the end, it will most probably not be any answering of questions, as I won't be able to see the questions, but please do send those questions through. We will see them and I will answer them by email. So without any further ado, I'm going to start the session. And this morning's talk is going to be protecting yourself in the consumer environment. Now, we've had numerous complaints in the industry on a daily basis of consumers calling us and plumbers calling us about the consumers and about the plumbers, and that they have been unhappy with the service that has been delivered, and the plumber is complaining that he hasn't been paid. So why all these complaints? It's because we are not protecting ourselves properly when we get into any service contracts. A couple of years ago, I was still in the construction industry, and a client requested me to do a built-in braai as part of the build. And I said to them, well, it doesn't comply with the National Building Regulation as far as the chimney is concerned. And they insisted I do it. I said, well, okay, well, we're going to put it in the contract that I take no responsibility and the owners takes full responsibility of this installation or any damages resulting from this installation. And truth bob, about 4 years down the line, I get to my postbox, open it, and I have a lawyer's letter claiming damages for fire due to this installation. And went to my daily file, pulled it out, and there was a contract signed by the client, and I sent it off to the lawyer, and that was the last. The next call I had was, can you please furbish us with a quote to repair? So yes, protect yourself and keep the records. So who said the customer is always right? The phrase the customer is always right was originally stated in 1909 by Harry Gordon Selfridge, the founder of Selfridge Department Store in London. It is typically used by businesses to convince customers that they will get good service at this company and convince employees to give good service to their customers. So what and how is it applicable to the plumbing company? The phrase the customer is always right is typically used by plumbers to convince customers that they will get good service at this plumbing company and convince employees to give customers good service. So the phrase the customer is always right, it's not what the consumer uses, it's what the plumbing company uses to convince his employees and customers that they will deliver a good service. Sorry, just 1 second. I'm just trying to get the slides running smoothly here on my side. Okay, there we go. As business owners, we are so ready to accuse the consumer of misusing this term. You know this or that has happened, but you know the customer is always right. He is never wrong. So we are ourselves to blame to a certain extent. Maybe Mr. Harry Selfridge placed a curse on business today more than 100 years ago when he stated the consumer is always right. But his intent was to not furbish the plumber with an excuse to use when we have not protected ourselves against the consumer claim to always be right. So one reason plumbers still go by the customer is always right standard is that they know how important their customers are. The customer is always right because as plumbing company, you want your customers to return as well as feel welcomed and appreciated. 4 reasons why the customer is always right. Once again, the customer makes the business. A plumbing company without customers cannot function. The plumbing company wants the consumer to be satisfied with the quality of work, and obviously the backlash could be devastating. Displeasing just one client can be devastating to a plumbing company. Just one hateful complaint on Hello Peter or a Facebook page can leave a business with a poor reputation. Or the new plumber in town will never recover or cut his losses, and he'll have to move on. It's good business ethics. Making the customer right is a positive business ethic. What is business ethics? It's a group of morally correct actions that further a plumber's reputation. This code of conduct displays the heart of the business, such as loyalty to your customers. It sets a standard of customer service excellence. It also sets a standard for the plumber working for your plumbing company. Customer service experiences are one of the leading causes of customer loyalty, loss, and customer loss. Every customer matters. Have no judgment. If the man living in the caravan as a permanent dwelling has requested your service and he's paying for it, he's entitled to your full company treatment, just like the man living in a mansion. Plumbers should strive to create a consumer environment of consistent, extra mile type service. We are the best and only deliver the best. Maybe a fighting statement, but if you protect yourself in the consumer environment, there is no reason for not putting that onto your van or onto your letterhead. We are the best and only deliver the best. And if you do not strive for that, maybe you're in the wrong business. It is essential that you are communicating effectively. That's very important. Communicate effectively with your customer to provide the best service. So how does a plumbing company set a standard of customer service excellence? By being the best plumber and plumbing company delivering the best service. Tina Turner got that right in the 80s with the song Simply the Best. So yeah, be simply the best. But how do we become the best and deliver the best service? Excellence is only achieved by protecting yourself and your company in the consumer environment. So how do we achieve that? It is essential for the plumber to communicate effectively, not only verbally, but in written communication. Written communication is key. You cannot protect yourself with he said, she said, and but. The plumber's main area of written communication, we're going to look into larger contracts and obviously your day-to-day maintenance. So a small works contract, here the communication is usually pre-designed by using a professional service which specializes in contracts on a day-to-day basis. I would strongly advise that if you do not have experience in this field of setting up contracts, to approach a professional. Pre-designed small works contracts are available. I will be doing a presentation on the IOPSA Business 101 webinar on the 11th and the 18th of May, pertaining specifically to small works contracts. Please note that these webinars are free also on a Monday morning through Articulated, so do not miss out. Terms and conditions, that is what you personally see, how you want to allow or not allow the customer to act upon receipt of your service or prior to the service. Bearing in mind that the big watchdog is the Consumer Protection Act. So you cannot place something in your terms and conditions that goes against the Consumer Protection Act. So careful once again with setting up your terms and conditions. Approach a professional to ensure that your terms and conditions check out. Steve Brown is looking into setting up a basic terms and conditions for a plumbing company, which will be made available for purchase in due course on the online store of IOPSA. PRBCOC. On this specific form of communication, we have had numerous discussions and talks. But in the auditing field countrywide, we continuously experience that the PRBCOC is not completed correctly. And this is the one place where you as plumber can shoot yourself in the foot. If not properly documented, or if incorrectly completed, it could save your day in court. So completed correctly, it could count against you. This is a legal document and it should not be completed incorrectly. Emails, letters, and WhatsApp messaging. All these forms of communication are considered to be legally binding written communication, obviously within certain parameters and requirements. This communication is covered by the Electronic Communications and Transactions Act of 2002. So let's look at the small works contract. Do not modify your quote into a contract or use the quote as a contract. Be vigilant for consumers adding and changing to your document. Protect it with a PDF format electronically. If changes are made by hand on the document, make sure to get the client and yourself with a witness to sign. Prevent future disputes by eliminating any pitfalls in your contract. When you change a contract, it could easily change the meaning of the intentions or the outcome of the project and mostly leave you out of pocket with a final invoice. Remember, the consumer is not your friend. He's only your friend once he is paying less. Extra work is always a bone of contention. So how to deal with small works and terms and conditions, short and simple. Keep a daily file of activities and documents, invoices, anything pertaining to the project in a chronological sequence. This way it will be easy for you to go back and see that you have covered everything as per contract, and see the extras you have done and documented. Document all extras, get the client to sign approval of extras. This will eliminate any disputes immediately when a client sees his signature next to the approval. Maybe make yourself a standard form which covers extras that you keep on site so that it is not forgotten, as many changes and extras occur right there on site. And a couple of days later, your client has an amnesia attack and can't remember that he has authorized this change. Do not wait to the end of the contract to invoice for the extras. At the end of the project, the client has changed a lot of specifications with all the various contractors without doing his homework, and you can end up with a list or on the list who is being paid last or not at all for the extras. Make it part of your contract and terms and conditions that all extras, labor and materials will be invoiced and paid within 5 days. Have clear, concise instructions of deposits and payments. Ensure that your contract is clear on how payments must be done and stick to it. This is where screening of the client is important. Just as a right of the consumer to do a background check on you, you are entitled to check on him to see if he is a legitimate client and if he is good to pay. Bearing in mind that the client in this case might be a developer who is a new guy in town, who has pitched from nowhere without any credentials, then you must be afraid, very afraid. Your contracts and terms and conditions are very important in the consumer environment. Therefore, make sure you have checked this out by a professional if you are not sure that you are properly protected in your terms and conditions. This was the most popular picture in the cash store in my young days. This is so true for a good small works contract in place versus a bad or no contract at all. It will always hurt you at the bottom line. Do not neglect the small works contracts, otherwise you will be out of money, as the guy on the left with a safe full of debt. The PRB COC. The PRB COC we all use on a day-to-day basis as licensed plumber. It's a legally binding document and part of your written communication. If done correctly, it is the best protection the plumber has ever had. If done incorrectly, it could incriminate you as you have signed that all work complies to the set standard. So let's see, how does the PRB COC protect the plumber? And note that I am now stating that it protects you, besides also protecting the consumer installation. So besides giving the consumer protection that all standards are adhered to by the plumber, the PRB COC will be the plumber's worst or best defense in a court of law. This is a legally binding document as mentioned before. Just as a contract, you could be either signing your life away or you could be protecting yourself. As auditor, this has been my biggest drive behind today's Tech Talk. In each audit I did last year, I had to emphasize to the plumber, as auditor, I will be held jointly accountable for your installation. So as auditor, I want to protect myself, and I can do it. I can only do it if the plumber has ticked all the boxes with his installation and his COC is filled in correctly. So if this document is not filled in correctly or does not contain adequate information pertaining to the details of the installation, or does not have the adequate information informing the consumer of non-compliances, I will request extra written communication to properly inform the consumer and to protect myself also as auditor. And then in the process also protecting the plumber. It's not because we want to be difficult in insisting that the owner is informed in writing of all non-compliances. We see the dangers and the liabilities, and so much more working with the legal side of the audits, that we would be committing voluntary suicide if we do not insist that the plumber protects his installation with the correct paperwork that we are auditing. Your COC is an integral part of your installation. So looking at number 1, the physical address details is of vital importance, especially when you are working at several units or blocks of flats. A couple of months down the line, you won't remember the details, and if you made a mistake here, it could prove difficult to see for which flat or unit it was issued for. I've had a case where I audited the wrong unit because it was incorrectly marked. No wonder the tenant was completely surprised and chuffed with the good preventative service that I provided until I got to Giza. The things didn't add up, and Mrs. Jones was actually Mrs. Smith. So here you should also ensure that the contact telephone number of the responsible person is on the COC, not your telephone number. If the owner's details are unknown, for example, if working for a body corporate and or at rental units, remember the responsibility is still yours to ensure that the correct owner at the time of issuing is contactable and informed of non-compliances. Do not put your number here. We have that already. We want the owner or the responsible person's number so that we can contact that person that is put onto the COC. Type of installation, number 2, there is quite obvious to mark according to the work you have done. Important to note that when doing a paper COC, you must not mark any specializations if you are not suitably licensed to mark that category. It constitutes misrepresentation and obviously being fraud. On the electronic COC, you will automatically not be able to mark it if not licensed for the specializations such as solar and heat pumps. Remember that you are required to have a specialized license if even just working on a part of such an installation. You cannot just mark one, for instance, I've only replaced the cylinder, I did not even look at the direction of the solar. It forms part of the integral system comprising of solar components where you need to be suitably qualified to work on. It's like working on the pipework of the space shuttle and thinking that plumbing has pipework and therefore I can work on the pipework of the space shuttle. Quite sure, they won't allow me even close to this shuttle unless it lands in my backyard. So stay away from things that you are not qualified for, as you will have no protection if something goes horribly wrong. Without a license, you will be guilty without perhaps having been responsible for the mishap. Number 3 is the installation details. It is what it says, details of installation. Not a short notice as I regularly see new house. This description could be as wide as the ocean. What happens if various other non-compliant plumbing works are done after your work was completed? Are you taking responsibility for that as well? In this case, yes, as your details are not to the point. On this particular COC, it's clear enough, you can see it's in handwritten there. It says this was installed for the insurance. We have the geyser serial number on it, the size, and specifying where it was installed on the outside wall, and it was relocated due to insufficient roof space. Still concise, but it has parameters. It gives you the serial number, the size, the position, the reason for relocation. So the work is boxed. Any work outside that box does not belong to the plumber, specifying the above details. In number 4, pre-existing non-compliances. This is very important as this covers you that you have informed the owner of the non-compliances, pre-existing or the ones he does not want to upgrade at his cost, as the insurance might not have covered it, bearing in mind that critical safety issues are non-negotiable. On a new house, there should be none in this column. Important for you, the plumber, is to ensure that the owner gets a copy of this document. And if not known to you, in the case of a body corporate, use an email to confirm the non-compliances. Add the certificate and address to the responsible person with the wording that it's imperative to inform the owner and supply him with a copy of the COC, as the owner is unknown to you, but transfer the responsibility of informing the owner to the responsible person that gave you the task if the owner is unknown to you. Don't just leave it. Make sure that you have some form of reply from the responsible person that they have received it by requesting that they acknowledge receipt of your letter or mail or whatever form of communication you decided to use. On the paper COC, the space is limited to write installation details as in 4 and 5 above for the non-compliances. So nothing is wrong if you see that you are not going to get everything in there, to see attached sheet of non-compliances or installation details. You can add it in there. On the electronic COC, there's more than enough space. Everything can be typed in there. You have space enough to write all the installation details in there. In these 2 sections, keep the language to an understandable, non-technical language for the consumer, as that is required by the Consumer Protection Act. So don't just write there, no R1 lagging, as it is seen to be very technical in a certain sense. People don't know what R1 lagging is. It's not a common term in day-to-day communication. So most probably right there, no rubber insulation on hot water pipes would be interpretable without difficulty. So keep in mind that the consumer is not a plumber. Can you withhold your COC if not paid? Not if strictly going according to the standards, as it's a requirement of the standard that a COC be issued to the owner of the authority requesting the COC on completion of the installation. But nothing stops you from putting it into your terms and conditions or contracts that the COC will be logged onto the PRB website on completion as requested by the standard, but the certificate will only be handed over on final payment. But do log it on the system at the date of completion, which is within 5 days, as that will show that you have followed the process and done your due diligence on your side. What about WhatsApp messaging and email communication? WhatsApp and email communication is legally binding, as previously mentioned. A ruling from the Supreme Court shows that simply signing your name at the end of a WhatsApp message or email is enough to constitute a binding agreement. The ruling in November 2014 found that email negotiations and typed email signatures were binding, and this is covered by the Electronic Communications and Transactions Act. So looking at the maintenance plumber, what must the electronic message contain to be used as effective proof to protect the plumber against matters of confusion pertaining to the service he delivered or what the client expected to receive? The plumber working for a developer or architect will obviously have a small works contract in place, but the electronic messaging is more directed to the maintenance plumber out there. Although it can be of value if you have a small works contract in place and the client enters into electronic communication or matters outside that contract, parameters must be set, such as extras, for instance. What must the electronic message contain to be used as effective proof to protect the plumber against any matters of confusion pertaining to the service he delivered or what the client expected to receive? Remember, this is also important that the client furnishes his details on the message. So I always request the client to please send me a WhatsApp if they prefer to use WhatsApp. I always ask to please put your name, address, number, service requested or problem, and responsible person who would pay the cost. What should this message contain? The same applies for WhatsApps, emails, SMSs, or any other form of electronic communication out there. Date and time, from whom to whom. The subject matter, message content clearly understandable as specified in the Consumer Protection Act, in non-technical detail but understandable language. If it's a call out, your call out tariff and hourly tariff, and your terms and conditions if applicable. Filing electronic messages. If electronic messages are If electronic messages are used, make sure that you know how to make the backups with the screenshots and how to save them for at least 5 years as required by law. So if it's on your phone, get it on a memory stick clearly marked or other device as preferred or printed. Remember, this proof of message could save you if a claim is made against you. It will be your only protection. Be sure that your consumer will keep it as he will use it against you. So keep your records. Spelling is important as it's a legally binding proof of evidence. No slang or unacceptable abbreviations. No emoji symbols, even if the interpretation is how great as it will count against you. So keep it very professional out there. Be very clear in your communication, in what you are going to do. Set the parameters and let the consumer know if any work has to be done outside of those parameters. Do not create unrealistic expectations. Give the worst case scenario and best case scenario. Be careful committing yourself to costs if you are not sure. Use a word such as we estimate, it appears, it can not be said with certainty. And my favorite, it's difficult to say without a crystal ball, but once open, we could get a better idea of the situation. So this morning's aim was to equip the plumber and the plumbing company owner with pointers of how to protect him or herself in the consumer environment that a plumber and a plumbing company works in on a day-to-day basis. But importantly, issue a COC correctly, and if completed, as it's your only ticket to pass, go and collect if challenged by the consumer. As the technology develops, the environment in which the plumber and the plumbing company finds himself becomes ever more challenging in terms of public liability, occupational health and safety, and standards. Therefore, protect yourself in the consumer environment as it will eat you alive. Keep proper records. The job's not done until the paperwork is done. Excellent customer service is the crux of any plumbing company, and plumbers must take all initiatives to make customers happy by catering to their needs. But adopting the principle of the customer is always right eventually hurts the business by demotivating employees, giving power to offensive customers, and also by creating bad experiences for the other customers. The key is to build the written communication skills of the employees in protecting themselves and the company. Support them to do their best while dealing with customers without allowing impolite ones to dictate the rules. My final question is to you, the plumber and the plumbing company. Are you going to wait until you have a public liability claim against the company before you get systems in place to protect yourself in this consumer environment? What is stopping you from getting your written communication up to standard, so as to protect yourself and your company? Join in every Monday morning for the Business 101 chat at 7 o'clock, presented by IOPSA for more information, making you and your business more professional and protected against the consumer claims. So I don't know if Sean is in the room. If there are any questions, Sean, are you there?
I am, yeah. But it seems like the network in my area is not playing ball, so we can get into the questions, but I might disappear. The first question I have got for you is, how do we screen a customer?
You can use a company to screen a customer. Screening a customer can take on various forms. If you're going into a small works contract, you can ask the customer in the contract when you are quoting that a proof of bank account is provided, and you can ask him to give you proof of enough funds, so his bank manager can supply from his bank proof that he is good to go for the contract provided. So speak to your bank manager on how to go about it. They can assist you in getting these, and there are companies that specialize in giving clearances as well. And then obviously ask the client, maybe, have you done previous contracts, referrals, ask for referrals, that you are quite, it's your, how can I say, you are allowed to do that. You can ask the client, can you provide me with any referrals with any contractors that you have done before? And those contractors can give you the information.
All right, perfect. The next question I've got is, why does HWC manufacturers not have to give a COC when they replace a heat pump / HWC under warranty / guarantee?
Okay, hot water cylinder under warranty. They are replacing the cylinder only. In other words, they're not changing to the installation, because that installation already has a COC as done by the plumber that has installed it. He is supposed to do it. It's in the warranty conditions of the company that all these companies supplying geysers, that a COC must be issued on the installation. Therefore, when they arrive there, they will check that it is compliant, obviously, and they do request these COCs, and that's why it's important that it is done. And they are only replacing that cylinder, so they are merely taking the electrical connection off and taking the two nuts off on the hot and cold water side. So if correctly installed, that will be all that has to be replaced, and therefore they're not changing to the installation. And they would obviously, that's why they request that a COC is issued, because they will fail that installation or that warranty if it is not compliant. So therefore it is not required if they are changing it under warranty conditions.
All right, perfect. The next question I've got is, the best way I get a homeowner to fix the non-compliance and accept is to make them sign next to your non-compliance on the COC. Once they realize they cannot hold you, the plumber, liable for non-compliance, they are more willing to rectify. Do you have any comment on that?
That's absolutely true. By having good communication skills and soft skills with your client, there are ways to get them to commit to fix. Once they see that there are liabilities that are now placed on their table, then they're not prepared to take the responsibility, then they would rather fix. So that is a good thing. Whatever way you can get the client to show that he has seen that there are non-compliances, he's acknowledged it. If he's put his signature onto the COC, that's a form of acknowledgement. So yeah, any form of acknowledgement is good.
Right, and then the last question I have got you is, can I state on the contract that all materials belong to the plumber until paid for in full?
Last Monday, we had that question that was posed on the Business 101 to the lawyer that was presenting. That is a difficult one, as he explained as well. All materials do belong to the plumber until paid in full. You can't put that on your terms and conditions. But bearing in mind, if it might be something that's loose and can be removed, I'm quite sure it can be done. But mostly plumbing installations involves like pipes. So if, for instance, if your pipes are chased into the wall, you cannot go and break it out. The law will prevent you from doing that. First of all, you'll have to notify the client that he has to pay and it will obviously constitute damages, and you can't enter anybody's property without permission from that person to go and remove anything. So be very clear and concise when trying to do something like that. It's very difficult. Get a legal opinion before you try and do something like that. If it's something that's removable, let's say, for instance, like a heat pump, which is put on the side of a house. Yes, it's removable. I'm quite sure you can go and remove it. Once you've got the owner's permission to enter the property and he's been informed via legal ways or whatever. So yes, be very careful and get a legal opinion before removing anything like that. Although it stays your property, it might be that it will cause damage, and obviously you might not even be able to use it later on. So no, it's not advisable. Talk to the client, get into a good communication there, and see if you can't resolve it to rather get payment than trying to remove it, because you will be out of pocket anyway, because now you're sitting with a second-hand product or something you can't use.
All right, perfect. Well, that is all of the questions I have got for this morning. I am going to go ahead and end the session off now. Guys, as I was not here during the intro, I just want to say thank you very much to HeatTech, right? They are sponsoring these sessions for you guys to help us bring them to you guys free every single morning. Then, guys, I have sent a message through the chat, right? Do remember, if you did miss last week's Tech Talk session, or perhaps even this week's Business 101 session, they are up on the IOPSA and App Plumber, right? Or rather, they are up on IOPSA's YouTube channel and the App Plumber with a CPD quiz attached to it. So if you do go back, watch that recording, answer those questions, you will be able to get the knowledge from those sessions and then still be able to achieve those CPD points. So again, you can go ahead and find that on the IOPSA YouTube channel or on the App Plumber. Right, guys, I'm going to go ahead and end the session off now. Big thanks through to you, Marius, for taking the time out to actually present this morning. And thank you to all of the audience that is here to actually listen in. Guys, I'm going to end the session off now. Please remember the survey on the way out and enjoy the rest of your week, guys. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.